Joe Sestak of Pennsylvania, a retired Navy admiral, also says it's time for the policy to go. Were you surprised, Admiral and Congressman, that this was coming, this decision by the president to push again to get rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
I was pleased that it finally did come. I felt, and I'd written to the president last year, that we should have done something for our ideals, this particular issue, last year. So I'm glad now that he's actually asking the Pentagon to even, as I understand, propose how to do it in the budget that's coming forth next week.
Do you think he's going to operate ahead of the generals and the admirals, or is he going to wait for them to form a consensus? Is he going to wait for a deal with them or push them?
This is a time where leadership is needed. There should not be waiting for leadership in the Pentagon to act. Look, this is an issue about equal rights. When you go on an aircraft carrier, and you've been there, Chris, 5,000 sailors, their average age, 19 and a half. This is where these youth, they don't care if somebody's gay. They're actually ahead of the leadership of the military. And the leadership, if they want to lead, better get ahead of the troops. So this is one where the commander-in-chief needs to say, make it happen.
By the way, I was on an aircraft carrier once, and those guys were great. Let's go to this question here of this KSM trial in New York, and I want to get to Pennsylvania in a minute. But next question, it's a hot one. Should we, the Attorney General and the government, try to lead Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind of 9/11, in New York City in a criminal trial?
Well, I'm surprised we're not going to be able to. Look, I read an article today that said there might take 2,500 police, a lot of checkpoints. Now, wait a moment here. I remember working at the White House when President Clinton was there, and I just drove past it the other day. We're able to protect the White House, which we have to protect almost more than anything else, without having checkpoints 4 miles away. I don't understand why we can't do it. But if we can't do it downtown New York City, we should do it in the Southern District of New York City. Why? Military tribunals twice have been told by the Supreme Court you're insufficient. There's an individual there who murdered. He should be brought to justice, and then he should be sentenced to the appropriate punishment, even death, by U.S. citizens for the harm he's done to this nation. Let's have justice done.
Okay, third question, where it's something of a standstill, a real roadblock with regard to getting a health bill. The Senate's got a bill passed. The House has got a bill passed. It looks like the Senate can't pass a freestanding bill again. They don't have 60 votes to do it. Do you support some action by the House on the Senate bill followed by some kind of reconciliation action in both houses? Is that your solution?
No, here's my solution. We should take those elements that almost both sides agree upon. It would be impossible after they said, the Republicans, they agreed upon pre-existing conditions should no longer be denial of health care, that we should not have women paid 50% more than men. Let's take those, let's get them through, because we'd really be calling out the other side if they didn't agree to those. Then, in a very deliberate, month or two way, finally, the Democratic leadership finally showing some leadership, go out to the public and say, here's what we're trying to do. Republicans, you've got a better option, and let's start discussing this and showing to the public why our bill is good and why theirs is not. Or if they do have something, we can do a principal compromise. At the end of the day, with 14,000 Americans losing their health bill, I would vote for 51 to 49 to get it through. But let's do something first. Let's make sure we explain it to the public.
Okay, let's take a look at this latest poll out of Pennsylvania. You're in this hot race for the Democratic nomination for the United States Senate. A new Franklin and Marshall poll for the general election has former Republican Congressman Pat Toomey now beating the incumbent Republican-turned-Democrat Specter, the senator, 45 to 31. How do you explain that huge advantage right now by the conservative Republican Toomey over the incumbent, now Democrat Specter? What do you make of this?
Well, it's the same message that I saw in July when I was going to the 67 counties in Pennsylvania, because the Washington establishment told me to sit down and not to run. And what I heard was, we're tired of the establishment trying to dictate interest for us. And so what you saw in Massachusetts was writing on the wall that if any leadership of the Democratic establishment had been looking around the corner trying to listen, they would have been leading and wouldn't have been dictating. Arlen Specter, who has actually savaged us with a recession as an establishment's nominee? No. This is a rightfully anti-established, anti-incumbency crowd that is saying we want to change in politics, not just policy.
Well, let's look at the primary fight. This is among registered voters, also by Franklin and Marshall. Terry Madonna's poll, 30-13 against you for Specter. How do you make that up? Apparently half the voters in Pennsylvania on the Democrat side haven't figured out what they want to say, because you only got 30 and 13 accounted for, 43% accounted for so far. Where's that one stand in the undecideds? Where are they going?
Well, that's terrific. And, as you can see, I'm through the line in the secondary, already headed towards the goal line, because as Ed Rendell, the governor, said the other evening, at this stage in the game, when I was running against the establishment, Bob Casey, Ed Rendell said I was 27 points down. So this is where you see those 55%, and that's why I've done looking for a different candidate. That's why I've done in 25 counties, 23 days, over 200 events. I just got back downtown Philly to come and talk to you, and this is why I really am glad that somebody stood up to say to the Washington establishment, there's no more kings, there's no more kingmakers. You can't dictate to us Pennsylvanians who our nominee will be. And I think you're going to see that people are actually voting for someone who will say, throw out the politics as usual, deal making, and let's be in it for the working family. And that's what Massachusetts was saying.
Okay, good luck. I like a good fight. Congressman Joe Sestak.